financial sector has the power and responsibility to ban dangerous or bad actors. They can ban them based on reputation, affiliation, bad behavior. They do this out of morality, responsibility, and duty to the public. However, brick-and-mortar banks and online payment providers like PayPal are no longer the only way for bad actors to get funding. Andrew England is the founder of the neo-Nazi site known as the Daily Stormer. The Daily Stormer was created in the likeness of popular image boards like 4chan. In his autobiography, Andrew England Exposed, he states that he started out with normal Alex Jones type conspiracies and then moved on to weirder and wilder conspiracy materials. And then eventually decided that Ted Kaczynski was right with regards to a coming apocalypse due to the rapidity of technological development. After many lawsuits, England owes multiple people a conglomerate of $20 million for offenses which range from deadly threats, doxing, and promoting violence based on intrinsic values like race, creed, sexuality, and gender. Since 2014, England claims that he has been banned from PayPal, credit card processors, and from owning a P.O. box. Since that time, he has been directing supporters to pay through his cryptocurrency wallet address, collecting more than 200 Bitcoin. Then came 2017, when England used the Daily Stormer to promote the deadly Charlottesville riot, boasting in a post, "We want war." He then allowed extremists to use the message board on the site to plan logistics. When Heather Heyer was murdered by one of the rioters, England even celebrated it in a post on that day after. As a thank you, a week later, one of his supporters sent him nearly 15 Bitcoin, which was worth about $60,000 at the time, making this the largest Bitcoin transaction in history. This was only surpassed by another white nationalist donation to one Nick Fuentes, who in 2020 received slightly fewer Bitcoin, but they were worth about $250,000. While it is known that England still owns hundreds of Bitcoin wallet addresses, and many are on the case when it comes to tracking them all down, due to some of his donors' identities being leaked, England now asks for transactions to be done exclusively with a privacy coin known as Monero. What are privacy coins, you might wonder? While cryptocurrency offers more anonymity than conventional fiat money transactions, it doesn't take much to pair your name with your private address, especially if you're under the investigation for funding a violent riot or hate group. One could simply enlist the resources of the DEA, the FBI, or even a private blockchain analytics company, and subpoena personally identifiable information, otherwise known as PII. This personally identifiable information may have been collected when the wallet was being set up. Enter the privacy coin. Privacy coins hide any identifiable information that can link anyone to a certain transaction. They may also hide the size of transactions or the amount each private wallet holds. The privacy coin that England switched to, Monero, is probably the most widely used privacy coin. Monero also uses something known as a ring address. A ring address connects various wallet addresses, so it is not clear which one of them sent the transaction and which one of them received it. Furthermore, Monero also relies on the creation of stealth addresses. These addresses create a new address for every single transaction. Monero uses a dual key stealth protocol. Many privacy coins will also use this along with an additional protocol known as ZK SNARKs, which stands for Zero Knowledge Succinct Non-Interactive Argument of Knowledge, which is the fancy way of saying the blockchain will validate the transaction without identifying the sending or receiving party or the amount being sent. Countries like South Korea and Japan have banned the usage of these coins. In the United States, many privacy coins are technically still legal. However, it is getting harder and harder to find a reputable exchange that will buy or sell them. This may be partly due to the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF, recommendations which were updated in June of 2021, which included new anti-money laundering guidelines for digital assets. To avoid legal issues, which obligate exchanges to collect customer identification, many repeatable exchanges just stop supporting Monero altogether. However, all of this cannot be blamed on privacy coins alone. There are many actors who are operating in this fashion using commonplace public coins like Bitcoin. Consider the case of one Andy Torba. After Gab was used to plan and support the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter in 2018, Gab was blacklisted from many traditional payment services such as PayPal, Stripe, and then 4 other banks. While this may seem as a terrible blow to a small business owner, Torba used this as gasoline for his fire and declared that he would begin building a parallel economy and society which was totally divorced from venture capitals or centralized systems. Then, on August 1st of 2021, Gab announced that they would be making moves to create this parallel economy. This idea primarily hinged on creating a diaspora state of individuals of similar values and mindsets who only use each other's services. For instance, Gab only allows Christian or right-leaning companies to advertise on their site, and they promote like-minded businesses as obscure as a small soap-making business or a Christian crowdfunding site. Andy Torbas says, "This is what the beginning of a parallel economy looks like. Gabbers are starting businesses, they are growing businesses, they are engaging in commerce with one another. They are supporting people and brands who share their values. They are using their purchasing power to help each other instead of the multinational elites who hate them. They are speaking freely." In practice, what Torba is really trying to do is to create an alternative to PayPal, GoFundMe, and Stripe, which is based on cryptocurrency. Soon after this declaration, Torba said that he must unite the old and new technologies, as in checks and cryptocurrency. He announced that they would soon be releasing the platform called Gab Pay. Whether or not this platform ever sees the light of day is besides the point. But Torba represents a trend of a far right trying to move away from centralization. Torba also uses crypto to raise funds, which he embarked on in 2018 by applying for a $10 million initial coin offering, or ICO. He called this the Exodus Protocol. On the Ethereum blockchain, an ICO is an extremely risky way of releasing a new cryptocurrency, a method of which Torba himself once called a dumpster fire in an interview with a Medium. After the ICO filing, Torba announced that the company had created 2 million Ethereum-based Gab tokens. He stated that he was hoping to incentivize developers to build on top of the Exodus protocol, recruit selected developers who have been scorned by big social, and to provide an open source protocol that any developer can contribute to or build on. The plan was short-lived. By 2019, Gab raised $10 million in a Series A funding round by launching a crowdsourcing campaign on their platform, which encouraged donors to buy shares in Gab using cryptocurrency. Torba then sought to integrate Bitcoin and Lightning networks across all of Gab's products, which then culminated in a web browser, which was made from a forked version of the Brave browser and what we know today as Gab Social. Suffice to say, Brave was not happy about this. However, Gab Social is the best early example of what we can call the decentralized web. So what is the decentralized web? It's a new form of internet where no one is in control, no one can moderate it, and there is no way to take down malicious sites, actors, or malevolent outlets for funding. Gab is actually a forked version of a decentralized social network known as Mastodon. Decentralized social media platforms utilize an open source protocol known as the ActivityPub. This protocol provides a client-server API, which allows for the creation, updating, and deleting of content, as well as API, which functions off of a server-to-server basis. But perhaps Torba explains it better. He says, Gab Social allows anyone to set up their own social networking server. All Gab servers are interconnected. Users from one can follow users from another and receive their content in feeds on their own servers. Summed up, this means that anyone, anywhere, at any point in time would be able to create their own Gab Social server. They could set up their own rules for the content on said server and create content sharing platforms that no one, not even Gab themselves, can take down or ban, let alone the government. Torbas stated that although the Gab and Mastodon communities are historically quite different, they share a common goal: triggering an unstoppable global migration of users away from centralized social media platforms, which are controlled by authoritarian and reckless Silicon Valley corporations. This form of decentralization is likely to give way to Web3. When you hear Web3, you should think of the antitrust movement of the 1920s, which sought to bring down monopolies, as it will challenge the centralized corporations like Meta or YouTube or Instagram. In this new iteration, the profit of the resulting data is not going to go to just a few monopolists, but to the people. Web3 can also refer to an internet that is made up of decentralized networks or many unstoppable domains, which are housed on a blockchain. But the key to this idea is that no single entity controls it, but everyone can still trust it, as the users and resulting nodes will be listed on a blockchain. This blockchain will follow the same set of hard-coded rules, which is known as a consensus protocol. The accompanying idea is to do away with all centralized banks, as it aims to allow values like NFTs or funds like crypto to be sent between two nodes. But most paramount, because these decentralized sites are exactly that, decentralized, they cannot be taken down, and they cannot be governed by anyone else but the housing party. And so I leave you with this. Imagine an internet where hate speech, terrorists, and domestic extremists are allowed to promote and post hate unfettered by regulation, where events like the Pittsburgh synagogue attack, or the Charlottesville riot, or the January 6th attack on the Capitol can be openly spoken about, planned, promoted, and funded without any kind of punishment or oversight. Imagine a future where the dark web has a light on, and it's no longer in the dark, but easily accessible and unremovable and uncensorable in the light. But most importantly, imagine this world divorced from traditional banking or regulatory oversight, where deals are done in untraceable currency, and where funds cannot easily be traced and cannot easily be stopped. It is developments like this which explain why one cannot turn a blind eye from what is coming. Soon, it will be nearly impossible to ignore these disruptive technologies. The private and public sectors must work together to create preemptive solutions to these emerging technologies and the threats that they pose. They must work together as force multipliers for the greater good of the future and to a greater understanding of what our future will look like. And as General Stanley McChrystal once said, it takes a network to defeat a network.